speaker is Wayne Himmelzahn. He will be giving a speech from the advanced manual. The title of the speech is Informed by Nature. The length is 5 to 7 minutes. Over the last few years, Wayne has been busy working on something very special. Tonight he's about to share with us that very special something. Please welcome Mr. Wayne Himmelzahn.
As many of you have been here over the years, you've listened to me speak, and over time, you've heard that I speak a lot about science. It is one of my priorities. You probably wondered, how come I have such a passion for science? Where did it come from? And what, besides speaking here in Toastmasters, am I doing about it? So, Mr. Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters, and most welcome guests, tonight I'm going to share that background with you. It starts out when I was born. I was a very curious child. Okay, I'll tell you a story. When I was about 5 or 6 years old, my father bought a new stereo. He was all excited about it. He called us all into the living room to see how this thing worked. He plugged it in, and we watched as he turned the dial to a certain number, and all of a sudden, music came out of the speakers. As a 5-year-old, I was amazed by this. Where's all the music stored? How's it coming out? And as he turned the dial to a new station, a different number, more music, but different type of music. It can't all be inside that box. And I was so curious to know how it worked. Later on that evening, when my parents were not there anymore, in the living room at least, I took out the stereo, took it to my bedroom, and closed and locked the door. I then pulled out a screwdriver. I had to know what was inside this thing. I took it apart, and within a few hours, I had all the pieces of the stereo strewn out across my floor. I didn't quite know what the pieces were, but they were organized by shape, by color. Transistors over there, capacitors over there. Of course, I didn't know those words at the time. When all of a sudden, Wayne, you seen the stereo? I ran to open the door. Yeah, Dad. You should have seen the look on his face when he saw my floor. The interesting thing was, as much as he wanted to be angry, he was also somewhat amazed at my curious nature. So he couldn't quite get mad at me. He was mad and proud at the same time. I took that with me, and what it did was allow me to flourish in my sense of curiosity. Therefore, when I went through the rest of my life, I went through school, I learned much more than was pushed on me. I read extra books. I did what I could to want to understand the world around me. When I graduated college, I was introduced to an amazing scientist, a man by the name of Carl Sagan. He was an astronomer in particular, but more broadly, he was a promoter of the idea of science, of the tools of science. He came out with an amazing documentary many years ago called Cosmos, which I watched. It's a 12-hour or 12-series documentary in which he explained not only what science has to offer, but the amazing tool of science, how we could use science to advance our understanding of the world, and of course what it's done for us. Suddenly my curiosity had a tool, had a means of moving forward. Ask questions, test or experiment for the answers, and wherever you see the most evidence, you find the most probable truths. It made a lot of sense, and it allowed me to channel my curiosity. I was so amazed by it that I called up that man over there. He was in New York at the time. That's Darren. And I said, D, which is what I called him. I cannot believe this thing, Cosmos. Every student in the country needs to watch this thing. People should not be allowed to graduate college or high school without seeing this thing. And when he answered me, I will never ever forget. He said, Wayne, so let's make sure they do. And with that sentence was inspired what is about to come. Within 3 months, we had hired lawyers to start our 501c3, a nonprofit foundation to educate the world about science and the natural world. Within the next few years, Darren and myself began to make a plan. We generated ideas, and we spent countless hours of conversation developing the concepts and the ways we would move forward. In addition, each of us took our own routes. Darren, as a writer and a musician, started to write a book that would become the text of the foundation. He also began to produce music that would become the music of the foundation. Myself, I started speaking. That is, in fact, why I joined Toastmasters, so that one day I could get up in front of large auditoriums of college students and tell my story and alert them to the beauty of the natural world and science as the tools of understanding it. Then, a couple of years later, call it about 6 months ago, we decided to take it to a whole nother level. We put out an ad looking to build a team. And out of dozens and dozens of resumes, we came upon what I call the Fantastic Four. And that's that group right over there. There's David Rogers, our head of research and development. There's Ty Rainford, our head of operations. There's Casey Rentz, our head of publishing and marketing. And there's Phyllis Ayers, our head of administration. And with that team, we've started to put together the ideas that Darren and I spent so many years developing. The concepts of the website are now an 80% completed website. The concepts of what we would do, scholarships, awards, grants, are now in place. Mind has gone to paper and to process. And within 6 months to a year from now, we'll formally launch. So when all of you see this on paper, when you see our 3 major goals and objectives, to support science, to educate the world to the tools of science and the beauty of science, and to raise consciousness to the awe of the natural world. When you see that full-page ad in a magazine, you'll look at it and say, I know how that came to be. Now let's